I don't know, I'm kind of in a storytelling mood this time, so I think a good story to share would be how I discovered Rocky Horror in the first place. Because in the beginning, my understanding of the movie was a little bit wrong. And by a little bit, I mean really, really wrong. But let's start all the way back at the beginning. Basically, the first time I ever heard that the Rocky Horror Picture Show existed, I was in a Walden Books bookstore. And on one of their end caps, they had a book about it. Thinking about it now, it was probably the script book with kind of a grayish cover and lips. But the cover caught my eye when I was walking past, and I didn't know what the Rocky Horror Picture Show was exactly. I mean, when I saw the word Rocky, I just assumed it had something to do with Rocky Balboa. I didn't know what the horror part was. But my proper introduction to Rocky Horror was, and I dread saying this now because people hate hearing about this, it was the Drew Carey thing. And it's probably good that my interest swayed towards Rocky Horror, or I would be wearing like a Priscilla wig right now. But yeah, after that episode aired, I just had to know what this was that they were doing. What was this time warp thing? So I ran on to what my family had of the internet at the time and tried to piece together as much about this Rocky Horror thing as I possibly could. And that basically started my journey of getting the movie really wrong in my mind. For one thing, and this is really weird, I didn't understand the lyrics of the Time Warp when I heard it on Drew Carey. Instead of "It's astounding," I thought the first line was "It's a sit-down day."
It's astounding.
I can't explain it. I don't know what I thought that meant, but all I knew was I wanted to hear the rest of that song, so I looked up Rocky Horror on the internet, and I found myself on the website rockymusic.org, which, as I'm sure many of you know, actually does still exist. And for those who don't know the website, it's basically a discography of various records and CDs that are associated with Rocky Horror. So eventually, after browsing for a few minutes, I came across a page for a single for the Time Warp, and it actually had audio files of the single on the page, which I thought was the luckiest thing in the world because I really wanted to hear this song. Now, on the page, the song was credited to someone named Damien.
It's just a jump to the left. With your hands on your hip.
Not knowing anything about the movie, I thought, maybe Damien was the name of the butler that Ryan Stiles was dressed as on the Drew Carey thing. So I thought, oh yeah, he's, creepy guy, kind of evil looking. Damien, sure, that must be his name. So from that page, I downloaded Damien's version of the song, thinking that's what I heard on the Drew Carey show. And I can't even exaggerate, I probably played this thing on a loop for 3 hours straight. But if you think I got that wrong, it actually gets kind of worse from there, because I found another page for a single of the Time Warp by a group called Just Us Girls. And I thought that was also from the movie, that maybe at some point in the movie all of the female characters sang it, and like a reprise of it, and, they put that out as a single and credited it to Just Us Girls? But wait, no, it gets better. So I started looking up other Rocky Horror web pages, and without actually finding the plot of the movie anywhere, I just started trying to glean a plot from the little bits and pieces that I found. At one point, I found a website with a bunch of MIDI files of all the songs and incidental music from Rocky, and one of them was called "Rocky Climbs the RKO Tower." And I'm sure as soon as I say that, in your head you immediately realize, it's that, infamously overdramatic music when Rocky's carrying Frank up the tower. And by this point, I kind of got the idea that it involved someone ending up at a castle. So in my mind, at this point, the plot of Rocky Horror was that this boy named Rocky, for some reason takes refuge at a castle in the woods where there's a bunch of creepy people, including this butler named Damien. And at one point, Rocky, this kid or whatever, has to retrieve, get this, the Sword of Damocles. Some sort of mystical item. And how does he retrieve the Sword of Damocles? By climbing the RKO Tower. I wish I was making this shit up. Okay, so eventually, I realized that the Damien Time Warp wasn't the actual song from the movie. So, somewhere on the internet, I found the movie version of the time. Well, not the movie version, the soundtrack version, but, let's not get picky. The Richard O'Brien version. And I also knew from looking at these websites, Susan Sarandon had something to do with the movie. So, when I heard a woman singing on the Time Warp, for some reason, I assumed that was Susan Sarandon. And my mind was like, oh, I can picture her singing this. That kind of sounds like her doing sort of a German accent, and obviously, I'm talking about Magenta's verse.
It's so dreamy, oh fantasy free me.
And hell, it gets even stranger. At this point, I knew that Tim Curry had something to do with the movie. I didn't know he played Frankenfurter. If I knew that, I wouldn't have known who Frankenfurter was. Which is kind of funny, and I should throw this in too, that, later down my journey of, finding out what the names of the songs were and stuff, and I think I read through the lyrics of the songs, at one point, I thought it was a running joke in the movie that they called each other hot dog, because I saw the lyrics of "You're a hot dog," and yeah. So anyway, yeah, back to Tim Curry. I found a picture on one of these websites. It was a screenshot from Sweet Transvestite where a person who I would later learn is Frank is posing in front of some sort of banner and curtain. And I saw that there was a song called Sweet Transvestite, and this is how my mind worked this out. The banner over the stage says, I think, Annual Transylvanian Convention. I thought it said, from this picture where it was kind of obscured, I thought it said Annual Transvestite Convention. And it was like a beauty pageant where different transvestites would come out and pose on stage and dance and stuff. And the picture I was seeing was one of the contestants in this beauty pageant. And Tim Curry was apparently... I guess I thought Tim Curry was in the audience singing this song called Sweet Transvestite to the people as they came out on stage and posed and stuff. Not long after this, my mind was set mostly right. Looking in the TV guide, I guess it was maybe a month or two later, I saw that on a Fox channel, not our local channel, but one that was maybe halfway across Pennsylvania, and so it would be pretty fuzzy. Their Sunday afternoon movie was Rocky Horror. So I freaked out. I was like, oh my god, I'm actually gonna see this movie. And I didn't watch it at the time. I actually taped it and planned on watching it later. But I did turn on the TV a couple times while it was on and it was taping, and I remember the first scene that I saw, just a glimpse of, I actually saw the undressing scene and thought Barry Bostwick was Rick Moranis. About an hour or so later, I turned the TV on again, and this time it was in the middle of Eddie's Teddy. And for some reason, again, I couldn't really understand the lyrics. I thought the chorus only consisted of the words Eddie's Teddy. And if you know the song, which I'm sure many of you do, they never actually say those words together. Obviously, it's, when Eddie said he didn't like his teddy. I thought the lyrics to the chorus were, ooh, Eddie's teddy, ooh, Eddie's teddy. So yeah, at some point that evening, after the movie had gone off, I watched it for the first time ever. And to be honest, the sheltered 7th grader that I was at the time, I really didn't understand what was going on in that movie, and to be honest, it weirded the hell out of me. I mean, it probably didn't help that you could barely see the movie. At this point, I really wish I had kept that VHS tape so I could show you the just horrible, barely visible Rocky Horror I saw for the first time. But yeah, I don't have it anymore. So yeah, that's basically how I learned about Rocky Horror. Mainly thanks to Drew Carey. And, before I saw the movie and I just kept listening to the soundtrack version of the song, I'll admit it, I was going around the house doing that bizarre, weird, look-alike, not technically really the time warp that they were doing on Drew Carey, with the fingers over the eyes and stuff, yeah. And so brings our story time to an end. I'm your friendly neighborhood man in a magenta wig, and I was confused about a lot of stuff as a kid. Rocky just got it the worst. Bye. Keep doing the time warp.